Alright, so welcome back again. So we're starting to chug through these things. We kind of know a little bit about variables and optionals. We're just going to pick another topic and talk about it. So we're going to talk about strings next. So pretty much no matter what language you use, you're going to need to learn to use strings just because they are so useful. And so we're just going to play around with strings some in Swift. A couple references I use for this, of course, the main Apple reference, but then there are also these other exterior things. So this is just somebody made a website called Learn Swift Online, and they had a good little section about strings that I thought was neat. Another guy talked about some of the other library functions that are present in Swift that aren't documented as well yet, and I kind of used his as well. So I just wanted to mention those two references. So what we're going to do is we've actually, in our downloaded zip file, we've got a strings playground already made. So we're going to choose to go over to Xcode and we're going to open that up. So if you find your follow alongs folder, you can see that there's a couple things in here. We're just going to open up the strings playground one. Again, you could open it, you could start it from scratch, but we'll just go and open this one because it's got a little bit of template in here for us. Alright, so when you open it up, it should look like this. You can see I've got commented out import UI kit just because I'll bring that in as soon as I need it. And we're just going to go through some different things. So the first thing we're going to do is just show string concatenation. So some languages like, say, Objective-C don't have string concatenation, and it's a real pain. And of course, that is one of the things that they chose to add in Swift, is simple string concatenation. You can also do some things pretty easily, like appending a string. You can just use the plus equals operator if you want to do that. It's really the same as the line above. It's just using the shorthand operator. They've also made it pretty easy to loop over the characters in a string. So you can just use an enhanced for loop. And then what you can do is you can just print out each character, which I've called kind of the old variable name, which was char. You'll notice that if you click on this, it'll just say 13 times, and you can't really see it. But if you want to, you can open up the time history. I think it's called value history or something like that. And you can see what it prints out. So here's the console where it prints that out. And then also if I clicked on this, it actually shows here what I was printing out as well. So that's a handy tool that you can use. And if you want to close it, there's just a little X up there. So looping over a string is quite easy. The size of a string, I don't love what they chose to do here, but it's easy enough. You say count elements, so that's one of the built-in functions in the standard library is count elements. String is a sequence, so it has the ability to count its elements. You can also do things like string interpolation. I went ahead and put this on here just because we've already done it. So I made a variable, which was 7, and then I used string interpolation. I just wanted to show string interpolation in here just because it is so valuable for things you do with strings. The comment I chose to make was also just kind of funny. 7 caret 2 is 5, not 49, because caret means XOR. So if you know what exclusive OR is, you'll know why 7 caret 2 is 5. But I just thought I'd make that little math side note while showing you string interpolation. If you wanted to test for equality, here we've got 2 independent strings. But if we wanted to test them for equality, there's no string equals lowercase that you need to use. You can just say, are they equal? And sure enough, they're equal. And you can see that they're the same because it prints out over here they are the same. All right, so we're just kind of chugging along. There's a lot of just very basic things that you need to be able to do with strings. Let's say you wanted to find a string within another string. The function you can use is called range of string, I believe. And you'll notice that it's not auto-completing. And that's because range of string is actually something that's built into Foundation. You can import Foundation by importing UIKit. And so you can see that now it's auto-completing to more stuff. It doesn't have to be UIKit. You could also just type Foundation here if you'd like. To be honest, I'm kind of lazy about that one because UIKit includes Foundation, so you don't necessarily have to include everything. And what range of string does is it's going to return an optional. And so we're going to be looking inside of name. And it turns out there's different ways that you can use this function. But what I want to do is I just want to pass in AV because that's what I'm looking for. You'll notice that what that gives you is it gives you an optional. There's a lot of different ways to work with optionals. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the if-let syntax, so the optional binding. So if-let, oops, I forgot the name of it here. Let's say range found. And then at that point, I've got access to range found in the inside if it found it. Ranges are kind of an interesting thing, and there's something you also need to learn about with Swift. There are two types of ranges. One is triple dot, and then the other is double dot with a less than symbol. So this one is the numbers 1, 2, and 3, and this one is the numbers 1 and 2. That less than means it doesn't include the last one. And so what this function gives you is it gives you an optional range statement. So if you wanted to, you could show it like this. You could also print it if you prefer to print it like that. To be honest, it looks about the same on the right-hand side. And then if we wanted to actually find where it started, then we could type found AV from, and so I say dot start index to get the start index, and then I say end index there. And then the dot, dot, dot are just there because I chose to put them in my string. So there you can see that if you wanted to find a string within a string, one of the best ways to do it is this range, but that's built into the foundation. If you just wanted to find a single character, that's actually a little easier. There's a built-in function called find that will let you find something. So let's just say we wanted to find the A in name. It'll give you that. And again, if you wanted to, you could use optional binding because it gives you an optional. So you could say like if let index equals that. And then what we could do is we could say that we found it at the location of index. And that would be another thing that you could do there. So again, you can see how important these optionals are. I mean, we're using optionals all over the place here. I've chosen to solve the optionals problem with optional binding. But I mean, if you know that it exists, you could use forced unwrapping. There's all kinds of cute little options. Or you could just leave it as an optional. That's fine too. So that's finding a string and finding a character. What if you wanted to make a substring? So that happens all the time. It would be kind of nice if you could just pass in bracket 7, right? Like that would make your life easier. It turns out that they haven't made this work like this. And the reason is because it supports Unicode characters, and each character might include multiple spots in the array, yada, yada, yada. The way you have to get around it is you have to use this start, or this advance feature, and then you pass in a start index, and then you say, how far do you want to advance it? So if I wanted to advance it 7 characters over, I'd get a W here. Also, if you wanted to do a little bit more than that, you could also use their range statements. So if I wanted to, I could say start at 7 and give me the whole thing up to and including 8. And so that would be whoa, right? So there's some things with substrings. Let's go ahead and talk more about this Unicode thing. So there's a lot more fun things we could do with Swift strings. But instead of making you type it, let's just go ahead and go to the solutions to observe. And there's 2 things in here that I'm just going to bring up and I'm going to talk about very briefly. So if you go and open up the one that's called Unicode Fun, so Unicode Fun is what I've got here, you can see that Unicode is totally acceptable. So here's a totally acceptable string in Swift. What I've done in order to get these characters, you can't type them. I've gone to some place on the internet. Here was the site that I happen to use, and I copy pasted them over. So these Unicode characters are neat. They're totally valid, as strings, no big deal at all. The only challenge with them is you can't type them easily. So if you said, I love to play football, that's totally valid string, right? I mean, that's a Unicode character that exists. I've done some things just kind of showing that, you can use them just like any other character. This one shows substrings. This one shows account. No big deal at all. If you kind of like some of these emoji Unicode characters, here I listed some of my favorites. I went through and I just grabbed a bunch of them for you. Another thing you can do with Unicode, which is kind of crazy, is you can actually use it as the variable name. So here I've actually made a variable, which is pi, right? So that's totally valid. I don't really recommend that, but it is kind of neat. In the example here, you can make your equation for circumference look better. And then I just kind of did some other things just to show that they're totally valid variables, and there's no problem with doing it, other than you can't type them, so they would be pretty annoying to actually use. There's another example in the Solutions to Observe folder, and that's string manipulations. I don't really want to go through it line by line. I just kind of wanted to show you that there's all kinds of things you can do with strings here. So here I've made some strings. I've done some different things with them. I've repeated, how do you get characters and ranges. And then some new things if you wanted to insert or remove characters, what are some of the things that you could do there. And then also if you wanted to convert a string into an array, breaking it by words, there's ways you can do that, putting it back together. converting it into characters and then bringing it back. And so you can see if you follow this example through, I kind of go from my cat loves to chase mice down to my dog loves my cat. And I've just kind of done it by manipulating the string in different ways. So there's just a lot of crazy things that you can do there. All right, that's kind of your introduction to strings. Hopefully you find some fun things that you want to do with strings. All right, see you next time. Bye.